Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of the Third and Short Overtime podcast. John's just joined us. He's got he's that keen. He's got a taxi. I bet you ran your heart out, didn't you, to get over here as well, John? just to get on today. But it's good. I'm glad you're here because it's going to be a good episode. We might as well do it anyway. Before John joined us, we were going to touch on our teams. We're just going to have like a little 2 minutes about our team so far. So we'll do it anyway. And I'll give John a break first. I won't jump to him straight away. I'll let him catch his breath. Let's start with you, Bones, about the Lions.
It's probably the easiest one to sum up, isn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, we're all going to be quite miserable about our team. So we might as well, so I won't worry about that. So we'll start with the Lions. What's your thoughts so far this season?
Hey, we can if we beat the Bears this weekend, Matt Nagy's getting fired, isn't he? It's been a tough year so far. You know, games that we were really close to winning, we didn't win. There's a lot of work to do in terms of the off season, but I still think there's enough to look forward to. I think if you got to be positive when it happens, don't you? And we've got a good set of first round picks over the next few years. We've got an extra third here or there. We'll probably get a couple compensatory picks for some of the players we lost in the off season. You know, we're going to get money back soon because we've had like negative 50 something million this year in available cap space. So yeah, I mean, it's not looking great now, but doesn't look that bad for the future. Hopefully, we'll see, but not much to hope for this year. We're going apart from first overall pick.
I think obviously it's been disappointing for the Lions, you know, but I suppose you went into it not expecting much anyway. Like I went into it kind of optimistic about Seattle because I normally am most years, thinking, yeah, we'll get to playoffs and we'll probably lose the first game like we have done for the last 3 or 4 seasons. But it's been awful. I'm going to be honest with you. It looked like it started okay when we beat Colts. It just looked like we played the Colts team that didn't know how to use Jonathan Taylor at the time. So that's probably why we got the win there. And I hate to say it because, like, obviously we've had such good times, you know, like over the last few years. Maybe not so much. Obviously, getting to the playoffs, which obviously I'm going to sound really negative about getting to the playoffs because some teams don't even get there, but you lose in one game. But to get there and lose one game each time, it's just, I think, like I say, I hate to say it because of Pete Carroll's done so much, but I just think maybe it's time for a change there now with Pete Carroll and even maybe Dan Snyder and stuff as well. You know, like obviously if Russell Wilson goes, you're going to cash in and get these first round picks. We know what Seattle are like with first round picks and stuff. So maybe
he's the oldest coach, isn't he? As well, like I think you might be right. It might be his time.
Like I say, he looks like he's still got the spirit and everything like that. But maybe I'm just being over dramatic because it's the first like bad season I've seen for a long time. But I just thought maybe a rehaul could do us good. You know, we've got some good offensive weapons on there. The defense is brilliant in the red zone, which hides how bad we are on defense. Really, to be honest with you, you know, they move the ball down the field so easy, but. Yeah, that's where I'm at the moment with him. And I don't think it's going to get any better for Seattle this season either. I think we've got unit back in the season, Bones, and I think we might have a couple of other winning ones, but we'll be lucky.
Hey, before the season, that was one of my 4 or 5 victories for the year. That was the could go either way game. Like that
it really could. Yeah, it really could. So I'll be if we manage to get 6 wins, I'll be surprised. So yeah, another negative little conversation about teams. So why don't we go? We'll save you till last year, because it's looking a bit better for you now. Mark, Raiders, how do you feel? It started well for you.
Do you know what it is though? Like I thought about this over the last week. Did it really start well for us? You know, like you ever watched a football game where your team gets battered and they go up in the last minute and score from a corner, and you're like, "Oh, get in! We've got 3 points," but you kind of feel like you've robbed it. Like you might have been playing Chelsea, which is normally how Newcastle used to do well against Chelsea. And we just absorbed an absolute battering and then got a corner, and then somebody would stick it in on the corner and you'd win 1-0. That was kind of the Raiders at the start of the season. So when we played the Baltimore Ravens, when we're going back that game, you know, it was an overtime victory. The same against the Miami Dolphins. And I was just thinking back in my head about them performances. You know, like, and even the one against the Baltimore Ravens, the Raiders didn't have a good first half of offensive football. They had some good big plays later on in the game, and they won off the back of that. They went to the Steelers and performed better, but they still had a very poor first half. And I don't know if them results kind of give us a true picture of who the Raiders were. Obviously, we've had a bit of, you know, the Gruden fallout, followed by the Henry Ruggs fallout. But I am buying that that's the blame. What normally happens with the Raiders is we start off really well, teams start to suss us out, and we don't make enough adjustments. And this has happened for about the last 4 or 5 years. And once again, it's happening again. Right now, I think I'm at a kind of a point where I'm like, we've had 8 years of Derek Carr. He's not getting it done. I'm not pinning it solely on him, but we need to have a change in philosophy, because if somebody said to me, what's the identity of that Raiders franchise at the moment, I'd go, I don't fucking know. We can't run the ball. We play good defense. But then they get gassed because they're on the field too long, and that's when you see these teams chewing off these big runs against us. That D can only keep it tight for so long, and when you're going 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out, you know what I mean? That D's back on the field again, and they're gassed by the fourth quarter, and teams will run away with it. And you'll go, well, our run defense is shit, but it's not because the time of possession, they've been on the field so fucking long. I'm at the point now where I'm like, let's just burn down the offense. You know, like, Derek Carr's got to go. I don't know what we'd get from him. I think we'd be lucky to get a first-round draft pick, given his contract situation. I think we'd probably be looking more about what Sam Darnold got, which might be a second-round pick this year, maybe a third or fourth-round pick next year. Josh Jacobs, I'm not sold on Josh Jacobs. Something's happened to him. I get Devin McFadden vibes off him. Never seems to be fit. Doesn't really bring much in the passing game. What a waste of a fucking first-round draft pick. Taking a running back, by the way. You know what I mean? You know my feelings about that. I was telling you offline about that. You know, you go across the franchises in the NFL and try and find me a running back who's played every game of the season so far. I'm thinking, has Najee Harris missed any time? Maybe not. But most running backs now are getting injured because they're carrying the ball and it's physical. If you're drafting a running back to make an impact, how much impact can they make in 12 games? Because you're going to miss them for a few matches. You know what I mean? And I just kind of think it's a dud pick in the NFL now. Incidentally, the top 5 running backs in the NFL at the moment who have got the most running back yards, and none of them are first-round draft picks. Read into that what you want. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'd probably kick the tires and see what I could get on Josh Jacobs. Offensively, we're just not getting it done. I'd keep Renfro, I'd keep Waller, I'd keep Miller. Most of the rest of the offensive line's depth. I'd probably be looking to bring in a whole entire offensive staff, a whole entire offensive mindset, and build a team in the mindset of your new head coach, who I'm hoping is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, if 5-5, you would think we've got it all to play for. But ultimately, I don't think we'll win another game this year. I'll be quite happy at that, because if you were going to be in the market to burn down the offense, which I think they need to, and they're going to be moving on from Carr, they're going to be in a position to take a quarterback. People have said that this quarterback class isn't as talented as other years. I beg to differ. There is some quarterbacks there with upside. I like the look of Malik Willis, and yeah, I think it's time for something different. I think it's just time for something new. I wouldn't be bothered if we didn't start Derek Carr on Thursday and Mariota got to play out the rest of the season, because we need to have a look at what we've got. And if we're all going to draft somebody like Malik Willis, you're all going to need a bridge quarterback. You can't expect to come from Liberty, the NFL. You know what I mean? And maybe Mariota could do that. You know what I mean? But right now, I'm off the Carr train. I'm just... It's not that it's his fault. It's not. It's that we've just had 8 years of trying to make it fucking work with him. You know what I mean? And we've tried everything. It is kind of like, we need to about turn. We need to about turn, and we need to do something different, which means an offensive team. I don't want Derek Carr learning his fifth offensive playbook, which is probably what it is. If a new head coach comes in, he's going to bring a new offensive playbook in. Don't want anybody learning that again for the fifth time. Now I would just cut my losses and build a new one.
So, yeah, very positive spins from the three of us so far there. I know on most Sundays, John has a cannon that fires into the sun and he fires players off into the sun. I think a few of us will be borrowing it because, JP, you were using it a few weeks back. Are you still on the fence of maybe bringing it back out, or are things turning over in San Francisco?
Well, a couple of things have happened since I was last on this podcast, be it for, injury, illness, or whatever the fuck's been wrong with me, or we haven't done an episode, or whatever it might be. Kyle Shanahan seems to have rediscovered the other 10 pages of his playbook. We've actually started running the ball again, and shock horror, we look like a half-decent team. Mike McGlinchey's out for the rest of the season. The offensive line's improved. I'm not saying the two things are connected. I'm just stating facts. And we seem to be being dragged along by MVP Bo Samuel at the moment. He's having an absolute storm. He was terrific against the Rams. He didn't do quite as much against the Jags, but we didn't need him as much. But yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic because the issue with the Niners is, and they've done this to me the entire time I've been supporting them, even in the good years, just as you're beginning to enjoy yourself, they come up with a performance that might ruin everything. And I look at what's left on our schedule. We should be able to win most of those games, but I know we won't. It starts this week. We've got the Vikings this week in what is a pretty big game. We're going to talk about the playoff hunt in a second, but basically, Vikings currently the 6th seed, we're the 8th. It's not as big as it would be if it was like the last game of the season, but there's definite implications there. It might keep our momentum going, but I don't know. I don't know how sustainable it is to run the ball 45 times a game. I mean, we're not running a single wing out there, so I'm not entirely sure how long we can keep it going for. But I've been pleased with how we've played. I said a couple of weeks ago that if we split the Cardinals and Rams games, I would feel pretty happy with how we were doing. We did do that. We didn't do it the way around they expected us to do it, and we were atrocious in the Cardinals game. But then we went out and battered the Rams. I can't quite get a read on what this team is right now. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Mark says he's got a question for me. So, go on, Mark.
So, out of all 4 teams, I would say that the 49ers have got the best prognosis. And I would say it's for one of 3 reasons, really. 4 reasons. One, you've got the best left tackle in football. Trent Williams is having a fucking blinding season, by the way. Best left tackle in football. Absolutely unbelievable. Playing out of his skin. Second reason is Deebo Samuel. You've got, somebody who's really emerged this year and can win at all levels, it appears. You know what I mean, though? So, Deebo Kittle has started to emerge over these last few games. Getting hot. George Kittle's getting hot. And, of course, Jimmy Garoppolo, is starting to get hot at the right times. My question to you, John, is this. Given Jimmy Garoppolo's form of recent, do you now think it was a good move by Kyle Shanahan to keep him on the team?
That's a good. I wasn't expecting that. I was actually expecting you to ask if I thought we'd keep him next year, because that question has started to crop up. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think I've been pretty consistent, other than when I've been firing people into the sun, which is off this podcast anyway. But I think when I've been on the pods, even back when I was on the main pod, the third and short non-analytics weirdos pod, as they would probably call it, I think I said that I understood why we were going down the route of keeping Garoppolo, because it's a team that I don't think it needs, especially if we play the way we've played the last 2 weeks, I don't think you need a top-class quarterback to win games. He just needs to make the throws when he has to make them, which is what he did against the Rams. He didn't really have to do it against the Jags, but he's still pretty efficient. If you can get a game manager style out of Garoppolo, you've got enough with the rest of that team to at least get into the playoffs. What you do when you get there is another matter. But yeah, I can see why he left him on there. And you're absolutely right. You pointed out something I was thinking during the game on Sunday and wish I'd said just now. George Kittle being back and being somewhere close to his best is a massive thing for a number of reasons. He's probably the best run blocker on the team. And he's a massive emotional leader, and we really don't have that many of those type of players. You look around the team, there's a couple of people. There's nobody that you think stands out as a personality except maybe George Kittle, and I think the fact that he's back and playing at his top level is really making a difference. I'll throw a shout out to one more player who had a good game against the Rams. I don't think enough people talk about him, and it probably is because he doesn't get a ton of turnovers. But Jimmy Ward was back against the Rams playing free safety.
Nice shit. Stop talking with him.
I thought he was excellent against the Rams, and I think it might be that the drop off between him and the number 2 is significant, but we look a different defense when he's out there. So I've got to give some props to him as well. I'm feeling good, but I'm waiting for the next drop down the mountain. It's bound to come in the next couple of weeks. I just don't know who against.
The cannon's on standby. Well, we can lend it back. We can give it back when you need it, John. It's fine. We've got lots of gunpowder to share.
I'm not firing anyone into the sun just yet. Just to be clear, like our season went about as badly as I expected it to go right now. Like last year's draft wasn't that bad. That I'm ready to fire people into the sun yet. The players that we picked up this year have been playing pretty damn well. Like Penei Sewell's one of the best tackles in the league right now. Like I don't want people to think I'm that down on this season's over. Like I'm over this season, but the future's bright, and that's what you need to think about.
So the reason we're earlier to this week is because obviously the Thanksgiving game's tomorrow. Detroit Lions, obviously Thanksgiving. Jared Goff looks like he might play.
There's about 60% chance that he's 50-50. That was Dan Campbell's exact quote. There's a 60% chance that he's 50-50 on the day. So make of that what you will.
Is he safe on the cannon? Is Jared Goff safe? If you could fire Jared Goff with the cannon now, get rid of his salary, would you fire him? Fire him. Go on, Bones, fire him.
No, because Tim Boyle wasn't any fucking better. So, as much as Jared Goff stinks, right now Jared Goff is the only chance we've got, it seems, to even win a football game, which is a sad state of affairs, really. Because it's like I said the other day, I was reading something recently that was explaining the year he did do well at the Rams. Head coaches were able to communicate more through the earpiece and tell quarterbacks a lot more of what was going on in the field. So Sean McVay was basically being his brain the year he was the best. He had a good year. He didn't have to use his own thinker.
One question for you then, Bones. Would you take Derek Carr?
No. The problem with Derek Carr is I definitely think
in the cold.
I think
in Detroit.
I think he's got the yips a little bit. I definitely think he's got the yips a little bit. Like, he's not a bad quarterback, but he looks scared sometimes. I just don't like that. And also, the thing about Derek Carr is I don't know that he's established an identity as a quarterback. When a quarterback goes to another team, you're like, we know what kind of football they're going to play. Derek Carr's a system guy, isn't he? I can see him being a future, almost Fitzpatrick-like quarterback around the league, where he becomes a bit of a journeyman now and he's a holdover quarterback. So maybe we do take him as a holdover until we can get something better.
That's the thing with Derek Carr, and that's the exact point. What is Derek Carr's identity when he's on a team? I was thinking about Cam Newton. At least when Cam Newton's in the side, at least your side's got an identity. You know what I mean? Or even Tyler Heineke at Washington, when they've got an identity with Tyler Heineke in there. Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield kind of fall into the same category for me, where it's like, what's the identity when you've got them quarterbacks in your team? What are you doing? Baker's got this run-heavy offense. He's being asked to pass the ball 17 to 20 times a game. And is Carr kind of the same? Is he going to... What is the identity of a team when Carr's in it? Because I'm lost. I'm like, what does he do? He's good, but he's not great at anything, but he's adequate in everything. The problem is one good thing about Carr is that he never used to throw many interceptions. Well, he's fucking throwing loads now. You know what I mean? And if you throw that into the mix with Carr, you quickly what's your identity when you've got him? What is your team's identity?
I think you just hit on something that I hadn't really thought about. Is that you mentioned Carr and Mayfield in the same breath, and you said run heavy 17 times a game. That's literally what we're doing with Garoppolo right now. That's that tier of quarterback, isn't it? They're not quite good enough. There's nothing wrong with them. And if you're a bad franchise, they would make you an average franchise, but they won't make an average franchise a great one. I think that's where it is. And it's how much you're willing to risk to try and get to that next level. But the Raiders don't have a lot to lose in my mind. Coach is already gone.
This is where
GM will probably go.
This is where I'm at with quarterbacks. Just get ones who can run, because at least the floor's higher. I've said this before, but look at Jalen Hurts. He's far from perfect, but Philadelphia are able to win games, and Jalen Hurts is able to do some stuff with that. You know, like, if you've got a quarterback who can run around at the back, you know what I mean? It opens up things, and you'll stay in games because at least there's a question mark on, well, if this guy breaks a pocket, what can he do? Let's have a look at Marcus Mariota. Let's have a look at Marcus Mariota at this stage. Because, look, we're 5-5, and some people will say, well, we're going to theoretically still get the playoffs. We're fucking bunk. We're bunk. You know what I mean? Like, we're bunk. You know, Zay Jones isn't good. Brian Edwards isn't good. I'm sorry, he's not. You kind of get off press. You kind of get a yard of separation. I'd like to see him moved into the slot. I'd like to see him be a big slot. But outside, he's struggling. You know what I mean? We'd get fucking mullered in any kind of playoff football if we're squeezed in. We're not going to go there anyway. But let's just see what Mariota can do. Because when you've got a quarterback who's scrambling for fuck all to run behind the line of scrimmage, it allows people like Brian Edwards to get open, or maybe Zay Jones to get open, because they're not getting open on them quick timing patterns. They're just not.
It forces teams to run spies that opens up the middle of the field. Like, it's guaranteed every time. You've got a quarterback that runs, they have to run a spy, which opens up the middle of the field. And what's one of the Raiders' best players? Darren Waller. Where's Darren Waller going to be? The middle of the fucking field. Get the ball to that man.
I agree. You know, Waller, Renfro, the two outside lads, Edwards and Jones, they kind of get separation. But they could do, potentially, if there's a running quarterback who's opening things up back there by holding on the ball for 6 seconds and stretching the pocket.
After this, Mark, you need to get into your Raiders chat and just carry on, getting all the frustrating out, because we need to move on to the playoff talk now. I know I can see the frustration in you. You need to.
It's therapeutic. It's feeling quite therapeutic. I feel like I'm excelling a little bit, man.
I was looking forward to Thanksgiving tomorrow. I get to see Lions for the first and only time every season. You know, it's looking forward to watching Jared Goff. You know, I always cheer you on, Bob.
First and only. You're playing us later this year. You're just not watching your own game.
Not the way it's going, no. So anyway, let's move on to the playoff picture. We're going to be talking about, well, we might talk about Raiders. We'll see. I probably won't. We'll start with the NFC. We'll start with the West and stuff, and we'll just look. Obviously, we'll go down and we'll look who the West champ they've got as the West champs at the moment, and see if we all agree, and carry on north, south, east. Then we'll talk about the wildcard positions. So we picked the NFC because, at me personally, I saw Mark put his in the chat, and I was pretty similar to Mark, so I thought most people would be. So obviously, we'll start with the Cardinals as the West, and obviously, I will throw in before after we do the champions. We'll all have a say who's number one seed as well. We'll throw that in. Cardinals are obviously leading the West at the moment. I know Mark's big on Cardinals. Is there anyone here that disagrees with the Cardinals? I know me and Mark are on as the Cardinals as the champions of the West. Anyone?
So here's the only thing, and it's nothing against the Cardinals. It's the time of year that these games are played. If by some miracle they have to go and play in Green Bay, that's going to be a very different game in the snow for Arizona than what they like playing. Like, that's the time where Green Bay upsets teams. Do you know what I mean? It might not happen, but that's the only thing I'm thinking is that kind of situation where they have to go somewhere else, which doesn't look likely at this point, but let's say it happens. Then it could get interesting, but it looks pretty certain the Cardinals are going to take it right now.
I think I won't spoil it and stuff and everything for my number one seed, but I think the Cardinals have already played Packers already this year, haven't they? And I think Packers won. But John, do you have? Obviously, we don't have any of our two teams, so we can rule that out. Do you fancy the Rams to pick Cardinals, or is it just Cardinals now? Do you see it out? Because I think they've got quite a favourable schedule.
Yeah, the issue is going to be the tiebreakers as well, because obviously, like, it's head-to-head and divisional. And the Rams actually haven't been great against the rest of the West. So no, unfortunately, I fear we're going to be listening to Mark talk about Kyler Murray for several more weeks, and I think they are going to take the West quite easily. It's unfortunate because I can't stand them, or Cliff Kingsbury, or Kyler Murray, but the way it goes, isn't it? They're a good team. I can't deny it.
My Kyler Murray shirt just arrived today, by the way, so I might wear it next week.
Do you want a minute on the Cardinals before we move on, Mark?
God, do I want a minute? I want to fuck.
Well, that's all you've got since you banged on 10 minutes about the Raiders, so you've got a minute.
Look, what the point Bones is making is right. You know what I mean, though? The Cardinals need to be all out for this number 1 seed. I don't think they'll win the NFC West. I'm looking at the games that they've got left. They've got the Lions to play. They've got the Bears left to play. They've got the Seahawks left to play. You know, like they've got a favourable end to their schedule. They've got Kyler Murray and Hopkins to come back. I just think that they do need to tie up this number 1 seed because I don't think anybody's going to want to go to Green Bay in the playoffs and going to want to go to Lambeau. I just don't think that's something that anybody wants to experience. Let Green Bay play Tampa. You know what I mean, though? And let's see who eliminates each other there. And the Cardinals will be thinking, well, fancy our chances of whoever comes to our place after that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of the Green Bay Packers, obviously the North got Packers at 2nd seed at the moment. Obviously the Vikings beat them at the weekend, but still got I think they played one more game than the Vikings yet, and obviously three wins more. I can't see Vikings pulling it back. Packers should see out this division, and I don't know if anyone, I very much doubt anyone thinks different, but I think the Packers have got a favourable thing here. They've got obviously the Bears. Have they got the Lions?
They've got us again. Yeah, they've got us again later this year.
They played you once already.
Yeah, they've played us already. Okay. But they have us later in the year, which they always do. The thing is about like this side of the league that I always think is it feels so much more top heavy this year, this side of the league. It's not necessarily that there's not good teams in it. It's just that the bad teams are fucking bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have 2 of the worst records in the league right now, I'm pretty sure, in the NFC, like with the Lions and who else has got a shite record right now in the NFC? I can't remember off the top of my head, but we have another terrible. It's just the top is just so much better than the bottom of this side, it feels like. It really does.
Seahawks aren't that bad, JP. You know what I mean? There's no need for that. It was a low blow.
No, they actually are. They actually are. By strength of schedule and tiebreakers, they are the 2nd worst team in the NFC.
Is it not the Bears?
No, the Bears are just above you.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Wow.
This is lower than it gets ever. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, George.
I didn't get this podcast to be called out like this. It's terrible. But to be fair, that's how bad the Seahawks have been. It's not a massive... Like, it's a surprise that we are below the Bears, but again, on the other side, it's not because they're so fucking shite this year.
It's because the Bears still have to play us, and you've got actual decent competition in your conference.
Yeah. We beat the 49ers once. Anyway, no, we're getting sidetracked here. So, yeah, Mark, Packers, I don't think, like, just a quick thing on the Packers. Offensively, when they were against us when I watched them, and obviously against Vikings, I don't think they're fully functioning as an offense at the moment. It's the defense that's really, really good this year. But like you say, if they get that 1st seed in the NFC, who wants to go to Lambeau? That's, you know what I mean? It's freaking freezing. Is it Mark?
What?
Well, Green Bay. What do you think?
Green Bay. You know, they haven't been as good this year as last year, have they? This is like a comedy warehouse. This podcast, like I've had 2 cans of pop and I thought they were sugar free, but they're not. They're full of sugar. So I'm like, it's like I'm off me nut. Yeah, like, you know what I mean.
No wonder you went on for about Raiders for ages. Maybe we should just do that each week. But
no, but yeah, the Packers. To be honest with you, like, you know what I'm more intrigued by on the NFC, because you're right, Bones. It's been a little bit poor this year, you know, and ultimately I do think that the best 2 teams in this conference are probably the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Cardinals. However, I do think that winter football in Lambeau really is a big leveler, and it's a very difficult place to go win there in January and February. But what really, the question I want to ask about this is, like, if there's a team that's going to come into this and maybe disrupt somebody, who is it? Because I'm thinking the Rams, there's questions about Stafford. I'm sorry, Bones. Like, Stafford seems to have half a good season and fall apart in the second half. He's got a bit of the Derek Carr about him. You know what I mean? But he's on a good team at this moment in time. And the Rams haven't played good football these last few weeks. Like, obviously they've been on a bye this week. They're going to come back and there's got to be questions about Stafford. Can he maintain this? Because he hasn't in his career, Bones. You know what I mean? So the Vikings have been up and down, up and down. The Saints, I don't rate them at all this year, although that defense is keeping them in games. I'm thinking the Dallas Cowboys have tailed off a little bit. Is this really just like we're talking top heavy, but is it really about three teams? Tampa, Green Bay, if they get home field advantage, and the Cardinals.
I think that's fair. Like, obviously, we'll move on. Obviously, you've got the Tampa Bay and the other two teams you mentioned. Tampa Bay, obviously, the Cowboys have tailed off as the other two champions. Like I said, I don't see any changes there. I think them two will champions. JP, in agreement with that, and in agreement with Mark, where it's actually Packers, Cardinals, and Bucks. Whoever gets that number one seed could see, especially the Packers, could see them go all the way.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a team to kind of pick themselves up and surprise a little bit. I think the Vikings have shown signs of it. I think, but yeah, I do, unfortunately. Yeah, it does feel a bit like there's that top 3 or 4, and then it's like question marks everywhere else. But I think this year, more than any other, if you're in the NFC, it's about making the playoffs. And then at least it's just one-off games, because any of these teams that are, I'm looking at the list, including the still in the hunt teams, on the day they can beat anyone. I think it's just whether they can turn up. But yeah, if you're looking at sheer talent, it is those teams without a doubt.
Yeah, I think obviously the wild card. I think all of us will be in agreement that the Rams will be there. Me personally, before I move on to Mark, I've got the Vikings just sneaking in. But I've got the Saints dropping out, and I looked at the Eagles' schedule, and I like the Eagles just to sneak in. But I'm also in agreement that I don't think any of these teams sneaking in are going to cause any disruption to the top 3 that you mentioned. I think these people get into the wild card, and then you see them drop out. I wait till everyone mentions their wild card teams before we move on to the number 1 spot. But I just think you're right. Even Dallas Cowboys. I think you've got the Packers, Cards, and Bucks. Is there anyone that you've got that sneaked into the wild card that you think can disrupt any of them teams?
Yeah, I've got the Saints dropping out, and I've got the Panthers sneaking in. I do think that Christian McCaffrey being back makes a big difference to that team. I do think Cam being back makes a big difference to that team. I know they got beat off Washington just a week gone, but I've got I think the Panthers can put a string of results together. Maybe get to like 9 and 8. 8 and 9 might get you in this year, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think the Panthers are going to get in. And I actually think that the Eagles and the Panthers are the 2 teams that are going to get in, and the Vikings aren't. I don't think the Vikings and the Saints are. I think it's going to be Eagles and Panthers.
That's fair. Bones, have you got anything different from wildcard? I'm going to guess you've got Rams in like us as well, and I'm guessing it's just...
Yeah, I mean, my bold blind faith prediction is the Rams come back after the bye and they're playing like they were in the first few weeks and they look good again. I think a bit of time for Odell to settle in, Von Miller to set in, and this team starts to look at what it was looking like before. I don't think they're out of it. I think they had a rough few weeks running into the bye for sure. But then some of it, I do wonder, like JP, does Shanahan just have McVay's number? What is he, 0-5 against the guy now? Like, I don't think you can put that on the team when the guy's got an 0-5 record against another coach. But I don't know. It seems like he just gets outplayed every single time he goes and plays Shanahan. Yeah, I think, though, I agree with Mark. I think the Panthers aren't out of this at all. I think McCaffrey and Newton being back at the same time is unbelievable for them. I already think they had a really good defense. I picked them up in our fantasy league and I've not let them go since because why would I? They're a good defense. They're a young defense, and it is that old trope that gets drug out every fucking year. But defenses do win fucking championships. So yeah, having Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, this team clicking, because the Washington loss wasn't a bad loss. The Panthers still look pretty good. It just didn't go their way towards the end of the game, which happens. Cam's been back 2 weeks. Like, I don't think they're out of this at all, and I think they'll probably push out at least the Saints, and I do think the Vikings are in a dicey situation because the Niners aren't that far behind them either. Like, look, it's the Twitch bot. No, it's crazy. Like, it is really crazy how open this feels towards the bottom end of it. I think the top 5 are basically set at this point.
One thing I would say that looked good, Jordan, about Cam's return. Moore looks better again already. He looked better already for having a quarterback who could actually throw the ball. I think they've got enough pieces that Dia mentioned. But I think with Moore, McCaffrey, and Cam, they'll have enough to squeeze out some wins. They've got a bye coming up though soon, Bone, so you might have to lose their defense or burn a spot.
I'll burn a spot. I'm not giving them up. They're mine now.
I just I was looking at the Panthers schedule and stuff, and they've got. I know, like, obviously, Bucks have got their injuries at defense back. They've got the Bucks twice. They've got the Bills, and they've got the Saints once. Obviously, I do like the Panthers, and I think McCaffrey back is massive. But I just don't know if they're gonna. You've got the Dolphins and Falcons next, obviously, and they could easily win them too. That takes you at 7. Do you see it? Obviously, you've got them both. You and Bones have got them both in, Mark. Do you fancy Panthers to get a win from the? Obviously, the Saints. Is that where the win comes from? The Saints? Do you think they can get a win over the Bucks? Out of either one of them?
I think they can beat the Saints. I think that Saints defense is good, but that Panthers defense is very good as well. And I think it'll boil down to the offensive weapons. And I'm backing McCaffrey, Cam, and more than I'm backing, like Kamara and Ingram and whoever they're throwing it behind center these days. And whoever they've got a wide receiver, Callaway, Thomas is already confirmed out for the year. I just think it'll be the two defenses will be good. I just think who's got the offensive weapons, and I back the Panthers.
That's fair. JP, obviously the 49ers are still in the hunt. I'm guessing, I know it's me as well, JP. I didn't like putting the Rams and the Cardinals in there as well. You know what I mean? So that's why I didn't put the 49ers in. But I'm guessing you put the Rams in as well. Are 49ers, can they squeak in? Have you got? I know you're quite a realist when it comes to 49ers. So have you got them squeaking in?
Well, the biggest shock to me looking at that is that we're 2 games behind the Rams with a tiebreaker, which is a bit fucking mental, really, when you think how well the Rams have played that bad we've been at times this year. Do I think we can sneak in? Yeah. I think we're going to have to improve at home. We haven't been good at home. Our 3 remaining home games are the Vikings, the Falcons, and the Texans. If we can win those 3 and sneak 1 or 2 on the road, we've got you on the road. The Bengals on the road, the Titans on the road, and the Rams on the road. When I looked at the schedule after Sunday, I sort of looked at that, and the Titans is the only game really that I would give us absolutely 0 chance in. Now, like I said at the beginning, I'm always waiting for the Niners to cock up a game they should win. I fully expected us to lose to Jacksonville last week. We can sneak in. I think 2 are going to drop out there, and we play the Vikings, so it feels a bit like it's going to be, that's going to be a key game. I think if we lose that, then it starts to look a bit dicey because there's a few things against you. The Saints don't look great right now. It's offense mostly. They're not producing what I would expect a Sean Payton offense to produce. So I think they're going to drop out, which means actually I think the Saints might find the mojo again. The Vikings, I don't really know what to make of. They're a little bit like us. They seem to follow good performances with bad ones. And it's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll say yeah. Go on. I'll be optimistic for once. Yeah, I think we'll make the playoffs. Sod it.
I was going to. This is what I was going to say. Well, basically, that's what I was going to ask you. Is do you not think the current way you're playing football basically adds up to winning in winter? Because you've basically just decided to run the ball a lot and
It's
ground game in January. Ground game in December and January works. It does work.
It does, but we ran the ball like 40 times last week. We're not going to be able to do that against some teams. Some teams have got better run defense. The Vikings will be an interesting test. They've got a pretty good, generally they've got a pretty good run defense. It'll be interesting to see what they can do against us. I keep saying this, but come back to me next week. If we beat the Vikings, it feels a bit more like, we might be in with a shout. Lose it, I think you've got to write it off then. We need a miracle at that point.
I think you're right. Spot on there, JP. That's a key game against the Vikings. I have the Vikings sneaking in because of them beating you. I don't know if that's just because it's bitterness. I don't want all three of you in there. So, but yeah, that is a big game. It's a big game. So obviously that's NFC sorted, and I thought that was quite easy. I think when I was looking at it, the AFC is a freaking minefield, and obviously at the top, we'll start with the South. We've got the Titans. Started off fantastically. I've lost 2 weird games. Mark, no Derrick Henry. I think the Titans' schedule is quite beneficial to him. Obviously, I can't see the Colts catching them. Do you? Do you think Titans stay as the champions in the South?
God, why?
No, you like Taylor.
It's wide open. I do think that the Titans will win the AFC South. I do think the Ravens will win the AFC North. I do think the Patriots will win the AFC East. And ultimately, I think Kansas will probably win out from here on in and finish with the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think that's what I've got, to be honest with you. Obviously, it comes down. Obviously, there is a challenge for each champions, but obviously that's exactly what I've got. And I think the big one is the wild card positions. There's so many teams fighting out for it. Bones, have you got anything different there with champions? Like, obviously, I think the Colts are a better team than Titans right now, but the Titans have got a very favourable schedule. That's why I've got them as keeping the South. But is there any other differences you've got?
No, not really. I think I agree. I mean, this just came in the chat, which is just not going to happen. I'm sorry, James, but it's just not. It just isn't. Look at what's up against you. Like, no, I mean, this all makes sense so far. Like, the Patriots have looked hard. The Titans' defense is what's been doing work for the Titans right now. Like, it's not necessarily been Tannehill and his offense, but Ravens. I love the way the Ravens play football, and it's hard to look at much else in the West. Like, the Chiefs do look like it's starting to click again. The parts that you need to work, much like the 49ers when it was Debo and Kittle, well, it's on this Hill, it's on this team, it's Hill and it's Kelsey, and they're coming back together now. It's working for them. So, yeah, I don't see it changing much. Like you say, it's the wild card. It's the amount of teams that's still in the hunt in this side of the conference. That's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, I had a hard time, because obviously there's a few teams that are left out of the wild card place that were like, I can't believe I've left them out, to be honest with you, but I was settled on what I've been. Before we move to the wild cards, JP, any differences? Same?
Interesting. Maybe the Bengals. I'm not convinced about them at the minute. I'm not quite on. Was it OCU Manura that said it, or was it Jason Bell that said they're just a bad football team? I don't think they're a bad football team, but they're a very average football team. But I think there's a few in that. There's a few in that list. We'll talk about it when we talk about the wild cards. I won't go into too much detail, but yeah, I can see that one changing. But yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it a bit more. So division-wise, I'd say that's pretty set in stone. They look like the 4 best teams. Interesting to see what run the Patriots go on.
Yeah, I think the wild card positions I've got them in different positions, but I've got the Bills and the Chargers staying in, but I've got the Bengals dropping out. Only just, that's what I mean. There's a few teams that I just had behind where, like, I did a brief look at the schedule and thought win, just a quick one. And there was a couple of teams on the same schedule, but obviously I just had them on division thing, and I had the Colts getting in, and sneaking into with the Bills and the Chargers to go with the 4 teams that I've said. Mark, obviously you got the 3 teams in the wildcard at the moment. Do you have the Bengals staying in, dropping out?
No, I have the Bengals dropping out, but I do have the Bills, and I'm a little bit undecided on the Chargers yet. But I do have the Bills staying in there. I'm like you, Jordan. I think the Colts are getting hot at the right time. I think Carson Wentz is playing really good football. I think Jonathan Taylor's just fantastic. You know my feelings about him. I don't need to say them again, although I will. He's better than Nick Chubb. I think Jonathan Taylor's like legitimately fucking fantastic. Probably the best running back in the NFL at the moment, with Derrick Henry injured. I do think that the Steelers, you look at these teams who are well coached and well established at this moment in time, and Mike Tomlin has been in that franchise a long time. The Steelers know that identity, and I do think that when it comes into December, those good head coaches who have been in their post for a while and know their teams, know the heartbeat of that city, will come through. It's why I'm a little bit undecided on the LA Chargers, because obviously they've got Brandon Staley there, new coach. I don't think they're a bit like that. I don't think they've got a real identity at this moment in time. I don't know if they want to run the ball with Eckler, if they want to kill you with paper cuts, if they want to go vertical with Mike Williams. I guess they can do a little bit of all of it. But ultimately, I want to see the 3 wild cards will be made up of the Bills, the Colts, and the Steelers, I think, by the end of it.
Yeah, I'll come back to you with a question real quick, Mark. The reason I went for the Chargers over the Steelers, I went for the main one is like I saw the schedule, and they've got like the Texans, they've got the Giants, they've got the Broncos twice, they've got the Bengals, the Raiders, and they've got the Chiefs once. I just thought that their schedule, like if they, like you say, they are one of them teams where it's like up and down at the moment. But if they do get up, I thought they'd have enough wins. And the only thing that at the end of it that had me keeping the Steelers out was the draw against the Lions. I don't know how much that's going to. I know it sounds silly, doesn't it, and stuff, that it's going to affect them. You know, when they could have won that game. So Bones come obviously. Oh, I had a question for you, Mark. That were it. Do you think the draw is a big thing? You know, can that see them not making it in Steelers? I know you've got them in, so obviously not. So
yeah, I do think it'll bear a difference. Look, it could be what separates them from who's getting in. I don't know. I'm just kind of backing the coaching at this moment in time. And I think when it comes down to December, you know, like the coaches make their money. And I think Tomlin will coach his way into the playoffs, you know.
So Bones, your team, we never know. That draw might keep the Steelers out, which a lot of listeners and fellow podcasters on other podcasts associated with this will be happy about. Do you have the Steelers sneaking in or dropping out, or any of the other 3 dropping out that are there at the moment?
The thing is, like, when I was looking at this earlier, I was like, the still in the hunt is a bit deceptive, I think, because I don't think the Browns are necessarily making it at this point. There's too much inner turmoil, it feels like, on the team. I think the Broncos, they can't pick a quarterback. Like, they're not going to make it through the playoffs in this position, like with the state they're in. And as much as the Raiders had a good start to the year, it's like Mark said, a lot has happened to them, and it just seems like it's an uphill battle for them to make it at this point. Like, even like not being like memey about it and trying to take the piss, like it's just an uphill battle. It was always going to be after that head coach situation. It was tough, and it's nothing that any player can help, but it kind of killed them a bit. So it's the Colts and the Steelers are there. I put Steeler. I'm sorry, I mistyped that. But no, the Steelers, I think Mark made a really good point. Mike Tomlin's like only had, is it like 2 or 3 losing seasons in his whole career? Like, he barely ever has a bad season, this guy. And Najee Harris and Freiermuth have turned out to be great offensive weapons for Big Ben. Like, he's almost throwing the ball, I dare say, well again. Like, it seems to be coming together for them, and it's the right time of year. And yeah, they're running the ball a lot with Najee. So yeah, it's looking good for them. And the Colts, well, as long as 2 sprains can keep his ankles together, then they might make it. You know, we'll see.
I fucking hate the Steelers, by the way. Just want to toss that in there.
That's why I thought I mentioned it. Obviously, I think a lot of us would not want the Steelers to be in there. But you're right, Bones and Mark, when you mentioned Tomlin. I think JP brought up a few podcasts ago when you were saying it seems like one of them seasons where an experienced quarterback, experienced coach is going to go on and get to the playoffs and maybe take them all the way. And Tomlin is that, obviously, unfortunately, for a lot of people who don't like the Steelers. dirty team. Cameron Hayward.
Just boring. Just absolutely bog standard boring.
JP, any difference in the wildcard positions for you?
Yeah, although I'm having a tough time deciding who the teams are to replace. I don't love the Bengals right now. I don't love the Bills right now. Defense is good. Offense looks like it's falling off a cliff to me. I don't know what the hell's going on in Buffalo. Chargers, I think will make it because I think they've got enough offensive firepower. I think they'll just do enough. But I'm having a hard time picking two teams there that I actually think are good enough to get in. I think I'm going to have to go for the Steeler by default because I don't know which Steeler. I hope it's not Roethlisberger or they have fucked.
All right.
I'm going to go for the Steelers by default, and as Mark is now spamming the chat, probably the Colts as well. The thing with the Colts is I don't love Carson Wentz, but they have an extremely good offensive line, and which is being underrated in all this Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb talk. Now they've got the interior line back. They are a real force, especially in the run game.
Yeah, but what happens when he explodes both his feet trying to do a run play? Like, they're fucked.
They've got a couple of running backs, I think. They've always been pretty good at stocking.
No, not Taylor. Wentz. Old two sprains over
no.
there.
Yeah, if they don't have the run game, I think Wentz is going to struggle to win a game by himself. But that's true of a lot of teams. In all fairness, it's I'm going to go Steelers and Colts in place of Bengals and Bills. I don't love that, and I have a feeling I'll be wrong about one of them. But I can't make a case for the Bengals at the minute. They're just an average football team. The Bills don't have the offense, I don't think, which is a strange thing to say when there's so much money tied up in it, but they're just really not playing well at the moment. Steelers, as we've discussed, experienced coach. I think they'll get the results when it matters. And the Colts, to be fair, have got a pretty good head coach. I think people are underestimating that, pretty good coach there. I think he's getting more out of Wentz than anybody else could. Not quite to the McVay Goff level, but it ain't far below that. So, yeah, I'll go with that.
I just want to say that Carson Wentz is having a really good season. I think that this is one of those situations where people are judging him a bit on the history of Carson Wentz and not necessarily looking at this year's stats. For example, he's thrown 18 touchdowns this year, John. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. This year, Carson Wentz. In his last few games, he's done really well. He's done really well. And, they pulled out a really big win against Buffalo this week. And I think that Carson Wentz, is sneakily having a Pro Bowl-like season. 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think people are looking at Carson Wentz and judging him on last year. This year alone, he's having a very good season, Probably, I would argue it might be his best season as a professional.
Yeah, well, he had a good year at Eagles, which were cut short. But I agree. I think Carson Wentz is benefiting really well from Taylor. Not just Taylor, they've got like Hines and stuff there as well. The run game has really helped him big time. Like when you've got a run game, you stacks of linebackers, but it gives you a bit more time and that's what he needs. Carson Wentz always wanted to do a bit of time, and he didn't get that at the Eagles. And one season when he did get a bit of protection, he did well. I've always liked Carson Wentz. I've never been criticised Carson Wentz. It just one thing in the NFL is like it's such a giant of a league, and as soon as your confidence is knocked, sometimes it's so hard to get back. I look at Sam Darnold when he came in from college. I thought he was a good player, and some people just can't handle that. Like pressure of like the media on you and things like that, and they don't make them bad players all the time. They're just not, they just can't move forward with it. And I thought that with Carson Wentz, and it looks like hopefully he's picking his form back and we see the best of him again. Right, we didn't do the number 1 seed in the NFC. We'll go back to that. I'm going the Packers as the number 1 seed, and they'll edge out the Cardinals for the number 1 seed, which is what we don't want. And everyone will have to come to Lambeau, and the Green Bay Packers. I hate this saying it more than the Cardinals going to the Super Bowl. The Packers, for me, from the NFC, are going to the Super Bowl. Mark doesn't agree. I'm going to guess he's going to say Cardinals. Is that right, Mark?
Of course, I want to see Cardinals. They've got the number 2 defense in the NFL, and they've got the number 1 offense in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go Cardinals. They're going to get that. Kyler Murray's coming back. Hopkins is coming back. Like, they're going to win the NFC for me. They're going to be the number 1 seed, and they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Bones?
Fuck it, I'm still all in. The Rams.
At least you stay strong with it, you know, Bones. We can appreciate that, but yeah, I don't think so. But I think it's more because I don't hope so. I don't hope. I hate. One thing I will say, I hate that the Packers might get there. I hate that the Cardinals might get there. I hate that the Rams might get there. I hate that the Bucks might get there. I think I'm hanging on, which a lot of people won't want. I'm hanging on the Cowboys getting there, to be honest with you. That's how bad it is, NFC.
You think you hate the Green Bay's getting there? You think you hate that?
Oh. I hate saying it. JP, you're probably the same as me. You probably don't want to pick someone that you're going to have to pick.
Yeah. Tampa Bay, fuck the Cardinals.
And
we're not getting a Christmas card, John.
AFC, I've got the Patriots as number one seed. I think they've got a nice. Obviously, the division helps them drastically, but I think they get to 12 wins and they'll win number 1 seed. I'm still on I've narrowed it down to 2 teams. I would have picked the Patriots before last week, but I think we mentioned it on the pod a few times. The Chiefs seem to be getting hot now and thinking. We mentioned it loads of times where Mahomes wanted to go along and he's like cutting. He's actually getting into it now where he's like hitting you with little paper cuts, you know, like just constant passes, and he's getting into the rhythm of this, and that's dangerous. So I am on the fence still, even though I've got Patriots number 1 with the Chiefs, and I'm going to stick with Chiefs because I started with them at the start of the season. So I'm sticking on the island there. I'm saying Chiefs will get there, and it'll be Chiefs Packers. Mark?
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs as a number 1 seed for the AFC. I think they're getting hot. I'm looking at a schedule. They've got us to play. There's a win for them. They've got the Broncos to play. There's a win for them. Ultimately, I think it might come down to a game that no one's really will be talking about, which is the Boxing Day game, where they have to go to Pittsburgh. I think that might be a difficult game for them. And I think if they can win that game, they'll tie up the number 1 seed. Who do I think will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? I think that this is a little bit less predictable than the other conference. I think that there is a team who can get hot, and I do think it will be the Patriots. I think the Patriots will defeat the Chiefs at some point, probably in the championship game. So I'm going to go with a Cardinals Patriots Super Bowl, guys.
So Bones, you've got the Rams. Who are the Rams playing in the Super Bowl from the AFC?
Not to just jump on the bandwagon, but I do think you're all right. I think it's the Patriots. I think if their defense keeps playing the way it's been playing, like they are on form for a run. They play sensible, conservative, offensive football. It's not exciting to watch, but it grinds out games and it does win. And this is the time of year to have games where you're grinding it out and winning. It's not pretty. It's not exciting, but a win's a win. And that's what I think the Patriots are going to do for the rest of the season now, almost.
If that's the AFC Championship game, Patriots Chiefs, I'd look forward to that one. That'd be a fantastic. Even if it's in Foxborough or Arrowfield, I think it'd be a fantastic game. JP, who have you got as number 1 seed, and will they be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl?
I'll go rogue then, shall I? Tennessee to be number 1 seed, but they will lose the AFC title game to his protege, Bill Belichick. I think the Patriots will be in the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll be the number 1 seed.
That's fair. So we're all out the Patriots and Chiefs, aren't we, around there? So it'd be interesting to see where everything goes. Obviously, there's still 5 weeks for some, 6 weeks for others, still to go and just enjoy it, starting with the Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. You know, obviously you've got your team, Mark, Raiders at 9:30, 9:05, whatever it is. Looking forward to that game. You know, can they dent the Cowboys' march? Obviously, you know, try to get to the playoffs. But obviously, we always do. Mark, you've got a bet for us for the week.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a Thanksgiving bet and a regular bet. So the Raiders are playing. Obviously, I know their team well, and I know their deficiency against their running backs. I want to see back Tony Pollard for an anytime touchdown this week, just because I think him and Zeke Elliott will both get touchdowns. But I think the price on Tony Pollard for an anytime touchdown will be greater. If I was going to parlay that into something, I would add Hawkinson for the Lions for an anytime touchdown as part of that bet. And maybe if I was going to parlay it into a treble, how about we go with Josh Allen rushing touchdown as well? So, you know, like, let's look at a Pollard, Josh Allen, Hawkinson treble, but definitely back Pollard on the anytime touchdown too.
Fantastic, yeah. Thanksgiving special and just more football in it. Thanksgiving, and then you come around Sunday and you just got more live football to watch. Fantastic. Yeah. Hopefully you'll join us next week where we might do a stock up, stock down. We might come back to that. We might do something else. Who knows? But we're glad to be back after a week off, and hope you've enjoyed this episode tonight. And we'll see you next week.